Mastering the mind is a bit like keeping a garden. If we want to have a nice garden, we have to keep it tidy, we have to sow the right seeds, we have to provide the right conditions for our plants, and now and again we'll have to identify the weeds and remove them. If we want to master the mind, we need to remove the clutter in the form of useless thoughts, and in their place plant seeds in the form of positive thoughts and productive ideas. When negative thoughts appear, we identify them and we remove them. Now, this process may seem overly simple, but simple things done consistently over long periods can produce tremendous results. But why would we even want to master the mind? What's the point? What's in it for us? What if I told you that your mind is responsible for creating your reality, or even for manipulating your reality? You'd probably tell me to fuck off, and I wouldn't blame you because it sounds absolutely outrageous. It sounds like magic or hocus pocus. But if you give me the chance to explain, I would tell you this. Everything in the universe is currently vibrating to a particular frequency, and the rate of vibration is responsible for the manifestation. And to give you an easy example of how this works, let's take two individuals. The first individual is somebody with a negative attitude, a victim mentality, and this person believes that life is out to get them at every corner. They're usually horrible in their dealings with others and they cause people a lot of pain. The second individual is the opposite. They walk around with a positive mentality. They believe that life is a gift and they spread nothing but joy, kindness and encouragement. Now, that first individual then can be described as somebody who is in a low vibrational state. They are operating on a lower frequency and experiencing a lower level of awareness. The second individual, on the other hand, is in a higher vibrational state and operating at a higher frequency and experiencing a higher level of awareness. Now let me make this point right now before I go any further. By no means am I saying that the higher vibrational person is better. I'm simply describing two states of being for this example. Now, getting back to why this has anything to do with manipulating your reality, your mind is both a receiver and a transmitter, and the vibrations that you send out into the world, you will receive back, often multiplied. This is a law of the universe. What you put out returns to you. Some people know this law as the law of cause and effect, or others know it as the law of karma. Some people call it the law of attraction. The names don't really matter, to be honest. What matters is that we learn how to use this law. We want to be in such a state that the vibrations that we are sending out into the world is exactly what we want to receive back. So this is why Buddha said, be the change that you want to see, and why Jesus said don't do what you hate and treat others as you would treat yourself. These guys were ascended masters and they were well aware of the laws that govern the universe, and they were trying to teach people the laws of the universe in a way that the people of that time could understand it best. So once we're in a state of vibration that attracts the situations, the events, people, circumstances and opportunities that we want, we can begin to figure out this game and unlock the key to shaping our own realities. Right, so that's all well and good, but getting into that kind of a state where we master our mind sounds pretty difficult, and where would we even begin? Well, we simply set aside some time for solitude and introspection, and we get to know our mind a little better. We develop a relationship with it, and we want to see why our minds have become so out of control. So we sit in meditation for a little bit every day, and we watch our thoughts and emotions that arise. In the action of being able to observe our thoughts and emotions, we can quickly realise that whatever is observing the thoughts and emotions that are arising is separate from them, otherwise observation wouldn't be possible. So this realisation will enable us to establish the first tool that we need to master our minds, and that's the ability to hold a space of neutral awareness that is completely free of judgment. As thoughts and emotions arise, we begin to see that a lot of the thoughts that we let run rampant in our head from a day-to-day basis are actually really unhelpful, and the corresponding emotion to those thoughts doesn't take long to appear after the thought. So if we allowed, say, a thought like, I'm not good enough to take root. Shortly after, a feeling of unworthiness would accompany it. So this thought is very like a weed, and we need to pull it up as quickly as possible to allow some space in our minds for some nice thoughts to take root and grow. Simply recognizing and having the awareness that that thought shouldn't be there is the first step. And to be honest, this approach of simply observing and holding awareness on the thought every time it arises would be enough for it to eventually fall away. But some of us like to take a more active approach, and if you want to take an active approach, every time you see that thought arise, you can tell yourself that this is old programming and I don't need to carry this thought anymore. Our brains are pretty much like computers. They're programmed in particular ways, but we can alter that programming anytime that we want. They respond to commands, but it's like anything we try in life. It might not work on the very first try, but if we stick at it and we work hard enough, it will eventually work. So that's how we start pulling up the weeds or the negative thoughts in our mind or in our gardens. Now we need to start sowing some positive thoughts. One of the most powerful tools that we can use is transmutation. Transmutation is changing something from one state to another. So in this example, we want to change that thought of unworthiness to a thought of worthiness. Transmutation follows the law that energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be changed. So essentially, a thought of unworthiness and a thought of worthiness are the same thought in essence. So they both represent thoughts of adequacy, but they differ in the degree of vibration. The thought of unworthiness is the thought of adequacy in a low vibration, and the thought of worthiness is the thought of adequacy in a high vibration. Thus, all we have to do is shift the thought from a low vibrational state to a higher vibrational state. And to do this, when the low vibrational thought of unworthiness arises, focus on the higher vibrational state, as in thoughts of worthiness. Now this can sound really complicated. All I'm basically saying is, when a negative thought arises, shift your focus to the positive state of that negative thought until your state of mind shifts along with it. So thoughts of unworthiness are just one example. If you get thoughts of rage, focus on peace. If you get thoughts of hate, focus on love. And if you get thoughts of lack, focus on abundance. If we learn to get the hang of this process, then we are well on our way to mastering the technique of transmutation, which is a very large part of the subject of mental alchemy. So we know how to hold a neutral space of awareness to watch the thoughts come and go with no judgment. We know how to identify the negative and useless thoughts, and we know how to transmute these to positive and productive thoughts. One more prerequisite to being able to master our minds is the ability to maintain focus. We need to be able to fixate our mind on something, whether it be cultivating a positive thought or completing a goal. And we need to be unwavering in our fixation and focus. This is because life is going to throw many distractions your way to test your steadfastness. The world wants to know just how much you want to cultivate that positive thought or how much you want to complete that goal. So we need to be able to ignore these distractions, maintaining all of our focus on the task we started, and we need to see it through to completion. Focus can be developed in many different ways. You don't have to meditate in the dark staring at a candle to develop focus, but there's nothing wrong with doing it that way if that's what you fancy. You can practice focus all day, every day, through every task that you do. You can do it through your job, through your hobbies, through your own leisure time. All you have to do is focus on the task at hand. Also maintaining that neutral space of awareness. And when you catch your mind chattering, drifting off, conjuring up scenarios that will never even exist, just bring your focus and attention back to the task at hand. Do this every time. The mind really is like a muscle, and the more you practice this technique, the quicker you'll realise that you've lost your focus and the easier it'll be to come back to it. Now there is many techniques and methods to mastering your mind, and I'm not pretending that these are the only ones, but these ones are simple and they don't require any prior training or anything fancy at all. And you can get started with these right away. The closer we get to mastering our mind, the closer we get to mastering our external reality. It's a bit backwards, really. So, in order to change and master the outside, we actually have to change and master the inside first.